So as folks are joining us, welcome for our TMN Tuesday June presentation. We have Sam Kieschnick presenting Dragonflies. Y'all stay patient with us for just a little bit longer, and we're going to get started in about 4 minutes with our TMN Tuesday event. We are going to be live streaming this event to Facebook, and I'm going to get that started now. We are also recording this event, and we'll have that recording available later this afternoon on our website. All right, we should be streaming this live on Facebook now. We're going to get started here with our TMN Tuesday June presentation by Sam Kieschnick on Dragonflies Pond Patrol. We've got another couple of minutes until everybody's joined us, and we're going to get started. So hang tight with us for just a little bit longer until we get started, and welcome to those that have joined us from our WebEx event. For those joining us via Facebook, we will not be monitoring chat questions on the Facebook page or the Facebook live stream at this time, but I'll be checking back in with those once the live event has concluded. So again, thank you guys for joining us today. We have nearly 300 attendees online so far, with more in the next couple of minutes. So again, just hang tight with us for just another minute and we'll get started. All right, I'm showing a minute till, and we still have some more folks joining us. So welcome y'all for our TMN Tuesday event. As we get started here in the next minute, please go ahead and adjust your volume. We have folks that have joined us from WebEx, and we have a Q&A open, and we'll talk about that so that y'all can ask your questions of our presenter today. We also have folks who are joining us via Facebook Live. Welcome. As we are streaming the live event to Facebook, we will not be monitoring those comments or questions sent in on Facebook during the live event, but we'll be checking on those post-event to answer if possible. So Michelle, Sam, I've got 12 o'clock on my clock. So we're going to get this started. Again, welcome to everybody joining us for our TMN Tuesday June event. We're excited to have Sam Kieschnick with us presenting on Dragonflies. We've got a lot of really great information that we're going to share. Before we get started with Sam's presentation, as always, we like to run through just a little bit of the tech for today. If you're new to our TMN Tuesday event, our attendees are not able to unmute or show their video, but that is on purpose. We have nearly 800 that had registered for this event prior, with folks joining us on both WebEx and Facebook. So keeping those attendees as muted without videos is going to help us give Sam the attention that he deserves for all of the great information that he's going to share with us today. Again, as you're joining us and if you're having issues with your audio, take a moment to take a screenshot or grab your phone and take a picture of this screen. We have audio settings that you'll need to adjust to make sure that you've got the right speaker selected, you have your output volume turned up, and that that your audio speakers are plugged in as well. That's been an issue in the past. So make sure that everything's turned on, plugged in, and the volume is adjusted. All right, and then for those that have joined us on WebEx, we will have a Q&A discussion period, or question and answer period at the end of Sam's presentation today. And we're going to be using the Q&A tool to enable that feature for our WebEx participants. That Q&A feature may be found on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen or on the top right-hand corner, depending on what platform or device you're joining us from. That Q&A is will be monitored, and during the open discussion time at the end of the day or the end of the presentation, we'll be asking those questions verbally to Sam. Please ask your questions in full sentences without any acronyms and as clear as possible so that Michelle and I can help to moderate those questions to Sam and get you the answers that you're looking for. And then also making sure that you've selected questions to all panelists will help make sure that we each see those questions right away and can ask them for Sam during that time period. Last but not least, if you are still having issues getting in for the WebEx event today, if you're a WebEx participant, go ahead and take that screenshot of this Help Center call number or website if you still need additional resources. And I'm going to pause here for just a second so those who need to take a screenshot can. All right, and then with that, Michelle, would you like to introduce our TMN Tuesday event and our speaker?
Our June TMN Tuesday is on Dragonflies, Paw Patrol. Sam Kieschnick is here with us. We've got an exciting topic today, an exciting speaker, and an exciting surprise for you in today's presentation. Just a reminder that our TMN Tuesdays is part of a year-long series. We have the second Tuesday of each month where we present an advanced training topic for our Master Naturalist program, our members, and whoever else wants to attend and get a taste of what the Master Naturalist program is and does and what we learn about. It's offered through our state office. All of them are presented virtually, and we do record them. We are recording this one. It'll be available at our website. You see listed there on the screen. The recording, once it's processed and done, we'll get it loaded and it'll be available on our website for viewing later by tomorrow morning. If you're new to the Texas Master Naturalist program, just a reminder or introduction to the program overall, that our mission is to develop a core of well-informed volunteers who provide education, outreach, and service dedicated towards the beneficial management of natural resources within their local communities for the state of Texas. We are sponsored at the statewide level by both Texas Parks and Wildlife and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Our volunteer we have nearly 15,000 volunteers involved in the program since its inception, more than almost 23 years ago now. We're just so happy that you're here, thankful for our volunteers. And if you're new or interested in becoming a Master Naturalist, please check out our website. You can find, one of the things to do is to find the chapter that's nearest you. Locate the chapter that's nearest you, and if there are a couple of chapters in your local area, find one that's nearest you and is most convenient for your volunteer schedule and the training schedule that we offer. Here's an overview of finding your chapter and getting involved. Again, if you're new to the program, apply, join us, and come have fun. In our TMN Tuesdays, I mentioned our TMN Tuesdays already. Our next one coming up is July 13th, again at 12 noon Central Time. And then we also want to take this opportunity to invite you to our Be the Change series, which is a series of sessions looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, all issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Master Naturalist program and other conservation organizations. Our next one is actually June 15th, and then our July one will be July 20th. June 15th, we have Judge Ronnie McDonald, who's a former Bastrop County judge, and his presentation and discussion with us is entitled "Don't Count Me Out, Managing Relationships, Diversity, and Inclusion." So we hope you can join us for that too. Just a couple quick reminders about our webinar etiquette. A reminder that attendees can't unmute, so please use the Q&A box. On my computer, it's on the right-hand side down at the bottom. Please keep your questions on topic and be respectful and professional. And try not to use acronyms, because sometimes an acronym may mean something different to you than it does to other people trying to help answer the questions. We aim to keep this session at 1 hour. However, we know that there's usually lively discussion and questions afterwards, so that sometimes the Q&A lasts a little longer. And then lastly, we gave you a chance to take a screenshot of the WebEx help guide and help numbers, but if you have additional problems or are still having additional problems working with WebEx, we have a guide there at the link listed on the screen. And so a reminder again, recordings will be shared by tomorrow morning. It'll be available for our Master Naturalists, our members who are already Master Naturalists. You can watch the recording for advanced training credit. These TMN Tuesdays advanced trainings are available for advanced training credit when watching them recorded. And then without further ado, I want to introduce to you Sam Kieschnick. He's an urban biologist with Texas Parks and Wildlife in the DFW area. Interesting thing about Sam is he's had a great career thus far in his young life as a naturalist for many organizations within the North Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area. Places such as the city of Mansfield, at Oliver Nature Park, he's been a naturalist there, the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge. He was a science interpreter with Fort Worth Museum of Science and History, and also worked as a botanist with Britt and as an instructor at Weatherford College. He has a master's degree from Tarleton State University studying the genetics of pocket gophers. And many of you know Sam as Sam Biology on iNaturalist. And Sam has a long history with our Texas Master Naturalist program, both as a Master Naturalist himself, certified Master Naturalist, and an advisor to a couple of chapters in the North Texas area. So if you know Sam, you know he's a great speaker, exciting. And as I mentioned, we've got an exciting speaker, an exciting topic, and an exciting surprise for you today. So Sam, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that you all can hear my voice. Still waiting for the sharing. Yes, allowed to share. I am going to share my screen real quick. Hopefully everyone can see that all right. It is so good to be with you, among you right now. Wish I was there in person, in front of a large group of folks, talking about our excitement and our joy for dragonflies. However, we're doing it online, so I can actually present to you wearing my pajama pants and no socks, which is nice. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about dragonflies and damselflies, this amazing group of insects, and just how amazing they are. And I hope that you have seen dragonflies and damselflies before. If you haven't, I'm going to tell you some of the places to look for those. But before we start with that, and Michelle, thank you so much for that introduction. But the question is, who am I to talk about dragonflies? I like to call myself a dedicated amateur. And I'm proud to use those words. I am dedicated to learning a lot more about this particular group among many others. And the amateur part of that phrase comes from the root word to love, the French word to love. So I am a dedicated lover of dragonflies. That's who I am, Sam Kieschnick, a dedicated amateur. And one of my favorite quotes, it's become one of my favorite quotes, is by David Attenborough, legendary naturalist. I hope you've heard of this individual before. He narrates so many documentaries. I'm sure you're familiar with his voice if you're not familiar with the name. But he has this lovely quote, and I'd like to read it to you. It seems to me that the natural world is the greatest source of excitement, the greatest source of visual beauty, the greatest source of intellectual interest. It is the greatest source of so much in life that makes life worth living. Beautiful quote. And I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir when I say this. And I'm sure that many of you already live with this quote. If not word for word, you live with it when you go outside, when you engage with nature. There is so much amazing and beautiful and magnificent about nature that we get to experience as master naturalists, as nature enthusiasts, or as amateurs of lovers of these things. And the truth is that we're products. We are products of mentors. We're products of our environments, of our upbringing, our schools, our families, our neighborhoods. We're products. And I love this quote by Isaac Newton. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. To me, this says that my mentors have guided me to see much further than I would without them. Lovely picture here done by Valerie Tabor, a Rio Brazos master naturalist of one of our mothing events, of Aaron Lincoln, another master naturalist with his daughter, showing some of the cool bugs at the moth light. And if just for a moment, think about some of the mentors in your life, some of the people that taught you what you know. My parents, they had a lot of time with me. They taught me and guided me and all that sort of stuff. But I was also so fortunate to have so many mentors and teachers and leaders and people that would guide me into nature appreciation and nature engagement. This individual, Greg Lastly, without him, I would not be really all that interested in dragonflies. I mean, I would like them, but I would be about as interested in dragonflies as I am interested in earwigs or in click beetles. I mean, yeah, they're cool, no doubt that click beetles and earwigs are really cool bugs, but I don't have that real excitement about them as I do with dragonflies. And Greg Lastly is the individual that showed me the beauty, the amazement, the wonderfulness of dragonflies. And I was very fortunate to be out in the field several times with Greg. He did pass away recently, but his quote that he said to me in a message when I was going back and forth with him is pretty poignant. He said, "I'm twice your age, Sam," to me. "But as we always say in the natural world, there are connections that are made regardless of the generation we come from." I had some naturalist mentors when I was in my 20s and 30s who are all gone now, but they are still part of me. And I think this is the cool thing about being a mentor or being a master naturalist, being a teacher, being someone that guides others, is that you're putting your fingerprints on that individual. And it may not be deep fingerprints, but still we are as master naturalists, as nature enthusiasts, as people that are into this stuff that show others the beauty of this, we are helping to craft that clay into another fellow nature enthusiast. So I am so appreciative for Greg Lastly in showing me the wonders of dragonflies. So what is this group? Odonata is the name of it, and that is a Latin or Greek, one of those old languages for toothed. And the guy that was putting together some of the insect groups, Fabricius, in the late 1700s, a student of Linnaeus, he noticed that our dragonflies and damselflies had some what looked like little teeth, little nubs and edges on their mandibles. Now, it's true that other insects have these, so maybe the name isn't a perfect namesake, but for whatever reason, we have stuck with this today. Globally, there's about 6,000, give or take, species in this insect order of Odonata. About half are dragonflies and half are damselflies. And I kind of like that, the image there of a damselfly sort of cleaning its eyes. And you'll notice on a lot of my pictures, I will have the copyright information. So I borrowed these from the World Wide Web. So I did put the links on there where the people that did these images, where they have that information. So I mentioned dragonfly and damselfly. And one of the things that we like to do as people is we like to break things up and put them in their own little corners. And this is a true distinction of a dragonfly and a damselfly. And there are some differences among these two separate lineages on the tree of life in that branch of Odonata. First of all, let's look at dragonflies. And the order or suborder here, depending on who you talk to, which way they group it, is Anisoptera or Epicprocta. And I use the word usually a lot with biology. And one of the things that I love about nature, and you all know it, is that there's the black and the white, and then there's that lovely gray, that spectrum where nature kind of breaks the rules or twists and turns a little bit on the rules that we put into place. But usually dragonflies are larger, they're stockier. The hind wings, and you can see it on this widow skimmer here, the hind wings are typically a little bit more broad at the base. The eyes are typically close together. So in some cases they're touching or almost touching. And when they rest, usually they are spreading out those wings at rest. Not always the case, but usually it is. And then we have the damselflies. So Zygoptera is the suborder here, depending on who you talk to and how they're classifying things. These are usually smaller, they're more slim. The wings are also about the same shape. Their four wings, their two pairs of wings are about the same shape. The eyes are further apart, and as we saw in that image of the dragonfly sort of clearing, or the damselfly clearing its eyes a little bit, you could see that those eyes were pretty far apart. So that's usually the case with our damselflies. And when they're resting, most of them like to have their wings rested kind of like that, where they're along the body. The life history of these critters is pretty cool. And I like the word beasties. That's something that I heard some of the folks that I correspond with from South Africa. They use this word for the little bugs and the little critters. They call them beasties. So I kind of like using that. I probably will put that in my vocabulary. But the life history of these organisms, these dragonflies and damselflies, is pretty unique. The metamorphosis here, we call it incomplete metamorphosis. So it's not quite the same as a butterfly or a fly where they have the cocoon stage. But this group has a little bit different stages. So let's go through these together. First of all, we'll start with the eggs of our dragonflies and damselflies. As far as I know, all dragonflies and damselflies have an aquatic stage, or at least a semi-aquatic stage. So because of that, the eggs have to be laid in or near water. In this case, with these darners, with this common green darner here, you have the male holding on to the female, and she is laying eggs inside of some vegetation or inside the water on some aquatic vegetation. Those eggs will develop, and they will develop into the nymph stage. With dragonflies and damselflies, we call this the naiad stage, or that's what the individual is, the naiads. And they will go through a series of molts. I think around a dozen, 9 to 13. That's the numbers that I've read online of different molts that they will have for these different instars, these different stages. A really, really amazingly cool structure that our naiads of dragonflies and damselflies have is this extendable mouth part. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Alien, but it's kind of like that. This extendable mouth part reaches out and grabs a little aquatic critter, be it a fish, a minnow, a tadpole, a mosquito larva. They will grab that and bring it back and nibble on it. And if you're really into this, you can watch. There's a great Deep Look. PBS did a great deep Look series on all sorts of critters, and one of them is on the naiad stage or the nymph stage of damselflies, and it's pretty cool. It's really amazing that they have that extendable pharynx that grabs the other little aquatic critters, and they're predators, so these are eating other aquatic critters in the water. And then on the last instar, they will emerge. So the last instar, the last stage of that nymph cycle, goes out of the water, and much like a cicada, I'm sure that many of you are hearing cicadas right now with the little nymph that comes out. It grabs onto some branch or whatever, and then it emerges from that. The adult emerges from that. The same thing with our dragonflies and damselflies. That last stage crawls out of the aquatic vegetation, hangs on, and then the adult sort of squeezes out. And I'm not sure if you can see it on this picture, and these were photos by Greg Lastly, a magnificent photographer among naturalists. But you can see the white strings on this. I hope you can, especially on the second and third photo. And those are actually the spiracles, the trachea, the breathing tubes of our dragonflies. And almost like pulling the casing off of a sausage, these are the socks off of a foot. They wind out like that. So I'm not sure if that's a pleasant feeling, or maybe it's just a kind of a relief to be out of that exoskeleton casing. And then we have the adults. And as with many insects, the adult stage is for finding that mate. So with our dragonflies and damselflies, not all of them, but in many of them, there is a difference between the males and the females by their colors, by their shapes. And with dragonflies and damselflies, the males have these structures, these claspers, that typically hold on to the female, and then the female mates with the male. So on the picture, I think it's on your left, but the one with the damselflies rather than the dragonflies, they're forming that kind of heart shape, which is very romantic. But you can see the male is the one that has the claspers that are grabbing onto the female's neck, and the female takes her abdomen to the reproductive structures of the male. And they can be very protective of their mates. Sometimes the male will hold on to the female the whole time when she goes to lay eggs, as we saw in those darners. Other times, as we're looking at these pond hawks on the other picture, the male is patrolling, is flying around as the female lays her eggs. And he will fight off any other male that tries to come in and mate with the female. Dragonflies, well, have I used the word amazing today? I hope somebody's keeping tallies on the number of times that I use amazing for these insects. They are amazing. And the adult stage, they are nature's almost perfect hunters. And they have all of these unique structures to help them. At the end of this, before I give a big reveal and exciting news, there's a challenge that I'll give you. But I hope, just to preface it a little bit, I hope that you get close to a dragonfly in the next couple weeks. And when you do, hopefully you do, I want you to look at the legs of it. And here I've got a picture of a black saddlebags, and the legs of our dragonflies and damselflies, they're asymmetrical. In other words, the hind legs are a lot larger than the forelegs, the front pairs of legs. And what dragonflies will do as adults is they will fly around, and with their legs, they kind of form a net, and they'll grab things in midair using those incredible legs. And you'll also see some little spines or hairs along the legs, and this just adds surface area to their net as they're flying around grabbing things. One of the other cool things about dragonflies is they are the ideal mosquito catchers. So I would argue that these are the best predators of mosquitoes in nature. They eat mosquitoes, so another reason that we should appreciate dragonflies. So when Michelle and Mary Pearl asked me to do this presentation, oh my goodness, I went down some rabbit holes. I had a lot of fun, a lot of late nights reading about dragonflies. And there's so much cool research, and there's so many cool answers and questions about why they are the way they are and their structures. This little structure called the pterostigma, at first I thought it was just a little marking to help us identify different species of dragonflies. Not true. It is a series of cells or lengthened cells in the wings of these. And because they have this structure, there's actually aerodynamic properties of this, that without it, the flutter would destroy the wings, or they couldn't glide as well without that pterostigma. So it's pretty amazing. Even this little tiny shape on the wing of a dragonfly has a purpose for them. Some cool research that went into kind of the physics of this structure as well. You can get lost, and I'll allow you to get lost in the eyes of a dragonfly. When I catch a dragonfly, I like to take pictures of it, and I also like to get a head-on shot of it too. The eyes of dragonflies are, have I used the word amazing yet? They're pretty dang amazing. They are magnificent. So what insect invertebrate eyes are like? It's actually a series of lenses, a series of unique cells, unique structures called ommatidia. And these aren't quite as good at image forming as our eyes are, but they're pretty dang unique and pretty cool the way that they work, that each one of those, of the 1,000 of compound eyes, those ommatidia that make up the compound eyes, that they're forming little images, studying the light and the objects in there to create some pretty amazing patterns. There it is, the word amazing. Somebody's got to tally all those marks. Many dragonflies also have these other structures called ocelli, or ocellus, singular, and this is for light and dark detection too. This rabbit hole, and I don't know if I told Mary Pearl and Michelle how late I stayed up on some of these nights. Pretty late. But how dragonflies see is different. And I can't pretend to understand the spectrum of light and how colors work. I don't understand that. I just don't. My understanding is when I hit the switch, I can see good when the light's on, and when I hit it again, I can't see so good. So that's my basic understanding of how light works. With us, though, we see in this trichromatic. We have these genes, these opsin genes that allow us to see in the reds, the greens, and the blues. Get this, dragonflies and damselflies have as many as 33 opsin genes. In other words, they are seeing colors that we can't even really imagine. They are seeing the world so differently, and it makes them so wonderfully adapted to their surroundings, to their predators, to their prey. You'll also notice with dragonflies and damselflies is the antenna are not quite as large as they are in other critters. This is because they're spending most of their neural power with their eyes, with those compound eyes, with looking at the environment. And it's why we see some really pretty and colorful dragonflies too, likely as well. But even how they are seeing the world in colors that we cannot even imagine is, let's see, what's a good word for it? Amazing, I think, is a word that I will try. Dragonflies move. They can migrate. So there are some species of dragonflies. This is one called the common green darner, a really fast but big dragonfly. Another night that I was staying up late, I was reading the research on their movements. And like the monarch butterfly, over multi-generations, they will move from the north to the south and vice versa, I should say, upwards of 400 miles in a generation. So that is a long, long trek for a critter that is 3 or 4 inches long. Just imagine. I don't know how many inches 400 miles is. Probably a lot. And that's a lot of body lengths of dragonflies that they have to move to migrate around. But really, really interesting that they're able to migrate to. So let's look at some of the dragonflies and damselflies that are common in Texas. And I know that we have folks watching from outside of Texas. My sister and my nephew and niece are watching from Saudi Arabia right now. So hello, Joanna and EJ and Adrian. Hello. So there are dragonflies and damselflies around the world, but let's look at a few common ones, relatively common ones that are found in big portions of Texas. A great resource, arguably the best resource that we have in the state of Texas. Dr. John Abbott did this, Dragonflies of Texas, a wonderful book, dare I say amazing, and you should check it out if you're into this too. Around 160 species of dragonflies, nearly half of all species documented in the United States are found here in Texas. So let's look at some of these together. And I think it's cool that they have neat names. Dragonflies have really cool names, common names. And that's a neat thing about dragonflies and damselflies too, is many of them have common names, much like birds. So they'll have common names that make it, some cases, a little easier to remember. I do like to learn the scientific names for them too. You can see the relationships or the defining characteristics with those scientific names, but I'll stick mostly with the common names on it. This one called the pond hawk, the eastern pond hawk, and these are dimorphic, so the boys look different than the girls. And in this page, I hope it's on the same side as mine, but the left one, the one that's fairly green, that is a female. And the male tends to be more blue. And as youngsters, when they first emerge from that last insert stage, they can have some green on them as well. So they can be really quite pretty as both males and females. The next one is the blue dasher. Let's see, how does the song? There's Dasher and Dancer and Charlie and Nixon. I don't remember exactly how. I really should have known that song. But there's Dasher. So we have the blue dasher here is the name of another cool dragonfly, almost ubiquitous in Texas. It's found throughout, I believe, found throughout Texas. Very, very common that we get to see it, at least here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and many of the other urban areas. The female on this side is the one that has some yellow on it, whereas the male, the more bluish one. With especially blue dashers, the eyes, those compound eyes, are just something you can get lost in, and I'll allow it. Go ahead and get lost in those eyes, the compound eyes of our blue dasher. We have the common whitetail. This is one. The female has more, well, it doesn't have the whitish tail of the male on this one. So we can see some differences in the boys and girls. We call that sexually dimorphic. So they look a little bit different. With these, you can see them resting or patrolling some trails along not necessarily close to a body of water, but usually somewhat close to a body of water. Something else too is where you can find many of these species. Some of them are quite persnickety. They want to live right next to the water or super close to the water. Other ones will live quite a bit of distance away from the water. So sometimes you'll be walking through the prairie where there's not, or there doesn't appear to be, a running stream or a pond anywhere close, and you can see some dragonflies flying about. So, but with some, you should go to certain places closer to water to see them. Some of the bright reds that exist in our dragonflies, pretty tremendous. This is one called the flame skimmer. There's a closely related species called the neon skimmer that may not have quite as much coloration or shading in the wings, but another cool one. Again, the female is a little more drab, no offense, but looks a little more drab, and the male tends to be a little bit more bright. This is one that we should know as Master Naturalist. It's our mascot. The Cyrano Darner is the name of this one. I was fortunate to catch one down at Gus Engling Wildlife Management Area. Great spot if you want to see dragonflies. I could almost argue that's one of the best spots in Texas to see dragonflies. Just tremendous. So the mascot is the Cyrano Darner. So let's look at damselflies now. So we have a few of our dragonflies. Let's take a look at some of the damselflies. Cool names that they have too. And we have, I believe, over half of the species in the United States are found here in Texas. Around 77 species, give or take, of damselflies that have been documented in Texas. I like seeing familiar bluets. Familiar bluets, I will see them out on the prairie. I will see them next to the forest. I'll see them almost anywhere that I go. And it's always fun to know that a dragonfly or damselfly is not too far away from me whenever I'm outside. Also, the way that these rest, they're sort of following the rules of damselflies. So the wings are at rest next to the body, but they're typically a little bit lower than that long stripe of an abdomen. There are quite a few damselflies, and the patterns, the markings on those different segments of the abdomen can be really important to try to nail them down to species. The powdered dancer, this is one that typically lives in more faster flowing water. That's typically where I see it. I'm sure they could be found other places, but usually when I'm at a creek that's running at a pretty good distance or a pretty good rate, I will see some of these powdered dancers. The Argia, this is the genus of these, can look very similar, and Greg Lastly always joked around with me about the female Argias, that they are very hard to tell apart. I could never do it. I'm sure he was able to, but I never felt comfortable doing it. The males can be a little bit more distinct on this species. But with our powdered dancer, you can see the male is holding on, the claspers of the male holding on to the back of the neck of the female. Fragile forktail. So one of the ways that I remember this one is, can you see the exclamation point on this? So you can see on the picture, hopefully on the left of the more close-up shot of the thorax, can you see that exclamation point? Next time you see, and hopefully you see, a fragile forktail, I want you to say amazing with an exclamation point when you see it. The fragile forktail, I think of fragile, fragile. Be careful with this thing. It has that exclamation point to it. Another neat one to see at Gus Engling is a great place to see these, the ebony jewel wing. With this one, the males and females look a little bit different, both of them gorgeous, have that ebony coloration to them, that shiny green glossy coloration. The females have these 4 little white spots on their forewings. The males lack those. And then a rule breaker, of course, we got to throw some rule breakers in there. The giant spread wings. So this is in the family Lestidae. So these, and relatively large, these are for damselflies, and they rest with their wings spread out. But if you look at it, both pairs of wings are relatively the same shape on this one. So they're not broadened at the base. If this were potentially a dragonfly, it'd be more broad at the base of those hind wings. Dragonflies are important. Yes, they eat mosquitoes. That's a cool thing. We enjoy that, but they're crucial in the entire ecosystem. And because of that, We actually give guidance on managing for dragonflies. So we can modify our landscape a little bit for the benefit of this group of insects. And there's some neat research that talks about dragonflies as bioindicators. So it gives us some idea of the health of the ecosystem by the different species of dragonflies we see, not just for the oxygen rate of the water or the pollution in the water, but also as an indicator of our invertebrate health, which is correlated to the uh, plant health. So it does all go back. And if you've read Doug Tallamy's books, you know this, that it goes back to the foundation of plants too. With a diversity of plants, we have a diversity of bugs, which gives a diversity of birds, which gives a diversity of everything. So even if you don't have a water feature in your backyard or in your favorite park, you can still manage for dragonflies by having a lot of different species of ideally native plants there. Those are providing food for our insects, and our insects are prey for our dragonflies and damselflies. So it all does go back to the foundation of having biodiversity of plants. Now, if you are fortunate to have a water feature in your backyard or front yard, or if you go to a park that has a pond or a creek, you'll notice dragonflies, especially if there's aquatic vegetation. So if you see some riparian plants or the rushes, the sedges, some of the floating water lilies, these are all good things for our dragonflies, not just for their prey, but for their life cycle as they're emerging out to form the adult stage or for their eggs to be laid on or near. We need you. Here's something else that's cool too. Oh, and I didn't mention on the dragonfly migration study. So that was an amazing study. Golly, amazing. Another check. I'm going to start doing a checklist here too. On that study, they used 140 years of museum specimens to study an isotope of hydrogen, a stable isotope of hydrogen, to document the migration of the dragonflies. But they also use citizen science or community science data, over 20 years of it, to document the migration of dragonflies. And this is where we all come in together as dedicated amateurs. We can document the species of dragonflies and damselflies around, and then add that to our growing body of knowledge of where they are in space and in time. A great site called Odonata Central is Dragonfly Central. It is the central place where we can submit citizen science records of where we see dragonflies in time and in space. Dragonflies are also somewhat sensitive to climate. And as changes are occurring, we are seeing dragonflies change in elevation, but also geographically too. So this is becoming crucially important for us to document where we're seeing these critters. And of course, I don't think I've done a presentation in the past like 10 years where I don't mention iNaturalist and the power and beauty of iNaturalist. I'm bonkers about this. It is a wonderful tool. It is a tool. It's a community. It's a database. It's a network. It is a way of life. It is a cool way that we can engage with nature. And I put a lot of my dragonfly observations, as other folks do, on iNaturalist. So you can document the dragonflies. With your app, it can be kind of hard with some of those fast dragonflies to document it with your phone. I will use a camera, just a point and shoot camera, and sort of slowly sneak up to the dragonflies or wait patiently for some of them to come to their perch and take some pictures of them that way. So this is another way that we can add to the growing body of knowledge of where these are, what they are. And honestly, I use it selfishly. I use it to learn. I love learning the names of the critters, the beasties that I interact with. iNaturalist is how I've learned a lot of these names. Here's the challenge. I challenge you. I dare you. I double dare you to go outside sometime this week And I want to see if you can find at least 10 species of dragonflies, damselflies, of odonata in this week. Do you think you can do it? It's a challenge. It's not an easy challenge. It may be an easy challenge, but it might not be. That's my challenge for you. And maybe visit a park or an area that you haven't visited before. You could do that, or you could go to one of the places where you know you're going to find them. The best place to find dragonflies is close to a body of water, be it a pond, a creek, even a drainage ditch. These are all great places to see dragonflies and damselflies. And then a challenge that I might have for you is to sit still, to wait for a little while. I was given a presentation to a Master Naturalist chapter the other day, the Galveston Bay chapter. I hope a few folks from the Galveston Bay chapter are here. And there was a session before that talked about all the volunteer hours that folks are doing. And it is just, go ahead, mark it down. Amazing. It's beautiful. It's magnificent. It's wonderful. It's revolutionary. And I hope that all of us, as Master Naturalist, hear, listen to, pay attention to the whispers of gratitude that exist outside. The whisper of gratitude may be the sound of a cardinal singing. It may be the sight of a little native bee visiting some purple coneflower that you put in your backyard. It may even be seeing a dragonfly fly around, visit a perch, fly off to scare off another dragonfly, come back to that perch. Listen and watch that as a sign of gratitude that we're doing good work. We are doing good work. We are the helpers that Mr. Rogers talks about during Bad News. We are the helpers out there. So spend some time outside if you can this week, listening, looking at the gratitudes, the whispers of gratitude that nature provides to us. And take a close look for dragonflies and damselflies. If you're able to upload them to iNaturalist, tag me. Let me know. I'm Sam Biology on iNaturalist. Tag me on your 10th dragonfly or damselfly that you see. I would love it, and know that it will make me smile if I see that. So do that if you want to. The most important thing, if you don't take records of it, don't take your camera, don't take your cell phone, that's all right. The most important thing is to engage with nature. And I just heard about this. Thank you to Regina from the, I believe, Elm Fork Master Naturalist or Blackland Prairie Master Naturalist. One of the chapters up here in Dallas, Fort Worth. She told me about this, the Olympics, the 2021 Olympics, where there's a contest, a challenge, a time that we can participate together with other people around the Western Hemisphere and observe dragonflies and damselflies, put them up onto Odonata Central or iNaturalist. There's some ways that you can merge your records from iNaturalist to Odonata Central and participate in this. Let's document as many as we can on June 19th through the 27th. I'm going to write it down in your calendar, a big line that says Olympics. And if you want, I can write you a letter to get out of any chores or family duties or anything like that. You are hereby allowed to participate in the Olympics. So I'll get you out of work if you'd like. Ooh! Another way that we can show our excitement about dragonflies is not by cutting off people. Please don't cut off anybody if you're driving. You're representing all Master Naturalists if you cut off someone when you drive. So don't do that. But we can show on our license plates our love of dragonflies and our support of the Master Naturalist program. This is exciting. I'm going to get mine. I can't wait to get mine. There's a press release that's going out on June 19th, and they will be orderable by the following Monday. Hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully on this. There's some instructions on how to order these. But it's another great way to show our pride for the program, to show that we are dedicated amateurs, that we are dedicated naturalists. We are master naturalists. That's what the master in naturalist means to me. It means dedicated volunteer. that we are proud to be lovers of nature, and we can show this even through our license plate. So excitement, yes, we get some license plates to show that we're master naturalist. With that, I would love to address any questions or comments. Now, my presentation was literally just scratching the surface of what exists about dragonflies and damselflies, about odonata. You can devote your life to studying these things and still be learning things left and right. I went down some fun rabbit holes, was sleep deprived for a little bit, but so worth it. It was so worth it to learn all of these neat little things about them. My email address, if I don't get to your question, we do have some time for questions, but if I don't get to your question, feel free to toss me an email. I asked the state for the longest possible email address, and they gave it to me. It's my name, Sam Kieschnick at tpwd.texas.gov, or you can send me a message on iNaturalist, which I'm probably on more than my work email. So with that, I would love to address any questions or comments.
So Sam, there are a few questions,
Okay.
and there's one I want to get to probably quickly because you just talked about it. So a few people have asked if you could repeat the tag for the Dragonfly Challenge.
Sure, let's go to it. Yes, so it's called Odolympics. Again, OD for Odonata. And sometimes they're called Odes, ODE, or odonates. That can be kind of the abbreviated form for dragonflies and damselflies, but this is Odolympics that exist. Michelle and Mary Pearl, are y'all excited for Odolympics 2021? Do you already have your costumes ready for the
Working on it. If I
pre-show?
can borrow some of that that Charlie Hart print that you have behind you.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yes, we'll loan it out. Any other questions or comments?
There's a ton of questions. One common theme of questions that I've seen is dragonflies as predators for mosquitoes, and maybe some management techniques for folks that like to keep water or have some running pond water in their backyard. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I would love to. I would love to. So I don't know, and I can't see a show of hands, but if you would just go ahead and raise your hand physically, if you like mosquitoes. Anybody like mosquitoes? You know, mosquitoes are crucial in the ecosystem. They're super important, but man, are they annoying. And just the sound of that zzz, have you heard it before? It's a thing of nightmares. It's a thing of nightmares, just that noise of them. Dragonflies are the predators of mosquitoes. There are, gosh, I don't know if I want to break people's hearts about saying this, but there was a study done in the 1950s or 60s about bats and how many mosquitoes that they eat. And it was a pretty flawed study because that was all that the bats in captivity were allowed was mosquitoes. So it showed that they ate hundreds of mosquitoes every minute or something like that. The reality of bats out in the wild, you know, they may eat a mosquito here or there, but they're going for the cheeseburgers, not the French fries. They are going for the moths, the beetles that fly around, not really the itty bitty mosquitoes around here. I hope I'm not breaking anybody's heart by saying that. Rest assured that there still are predators of mosquitoes, and dragonflies are the predator of mosquitoes, or dragonflies and our damselflies in all their stages. So as adults, the females that suck our blood and even the males that fly around and pollinate plants, they get eaten by the adult dragonflies. The naiads or the nymphs, they will eat both the larval and the pupal stage of our mosquitoes. So they are crucially important for not necessarily controlling the mosquito population, but eating a lot of mosquitoes. So another reason to thumbs up when you see a dragonfly or damselfly. As far as managing, it goes back to the plants. It really does go back to the plants. And you'd say, well, dragonflies and damselflies don't eat plants. So why do I need plants in my pond or in my creek or in my koi pond or whatever? But what they actually do, those plants, is either they provide food for other invertebrates, the prey of our dragonflies, or they give a place for the emerging damselflies and dragonflies, the emerging odonates from that last instar, the last naiad stage for them to crawl out. So aquatic vegetation is crucial for the healthy riparian area, and it's good for our dragonflies. I hope I addressed that question.
Sam, there are a few questions revolving around the life stages of the dragonflies, and I'm going to kind of lump those together
Okay.
here. So let me go through these. Are dragonflies dormant in the winter? And are they in a non-adult stage in the winter?
So I've got to be honest here, and I can't say that I really know. There's a great book called Thermal Warriors by, oh gosh, what's the guy's name? Bernd Hendrick. And he talks about dragonflies quite a bit. And in one of the chapters I'm remembering, he talks about a stage or a pose that dragonflies will do for thermal regulation, the obelisking position, where they'll stick their abdomen way up into the air to thermoregulate. But what about when it's really cold out there? When it's freezing? Uri, the ice storm Uri, what happened to our dragonflies? And it's interesting the way that water works too, is with a lot of critters, even aquatic critters, you'll have the top part of our lake or pond freeze over, but closer to the base of it, it's still unfrozen. And that's where some of our fish, our turtles, the eggs of insects, or the naiad stage rest dormant. And with these, with dragonflies, they are, I don't like to use the word cold-blooded, but they are poikilothermic or ectothermic. So whatever the temperature is outside matches pretty closely what the inside temperature is. And if it's cold outside, it's cold inside, and they kind of, much like reptiles, they rest and wait. So there's that period of dormancy, almost an arrested development that they go through. I'm not sure if it's true for all species, though. Thermal Warriors is a great book to check out by Bernd Heydrich is his name, that he talks about that. But as far as I know, at least some of the dragonflies and damselfly species, they will persist in the winter over those cold months in the water in a dormant stage.
The next few questions ask about the generations. And so one person asked, there are 3 generations. Are those all within 1 year?
No. So it's kind of, well, oh, I see what you're saying. It is different generations, and I believe it's multiple years. If I could go back up to those slides, and sorry if I'm flying through this too quick, I don't want to make you sick there. But we're looking at this, and this is the stage of 1 year here. So it does look on this like with the green darner, their example that they used was from just that 1 year, that they will go a total of 820 some odd miles in that single year, but the multiple generations for that. So kind of the grandson and the grandpa are the ones that fly around, and the the mom or dad sort of stay put.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Another question related to the generations is, what is the time period between egg laying to adulthood? And then how long does it take 3 generations to migrate from where they start to where they end up?
Yeah, and I encourage you, if you want to go on this rabbit hole with me, let's hold hands and jump down this together. And this research is so cool. The Royal Society Publishing did this, or they published it through this, and I have the title of it, Tracking Dragons. An amazing. Again, Mary Pearl, did you count amazings? How many do you have on your list?
I ran out of room on my paper.
Did you? Okay, yeah. My pencil ran out of lead. That's how bad it was. I don't know how if you were a kid and you had the little tiny pencils and you'd keep working with it. Yeah, I ran out of lead with my check marks, but the paper is amazing. That's a true word for it. Studying 120, 140 years of museum specimens and then 21 years of citizen science data to get this product out of it. Really, really amazing. Someone asked about I think this was part of it, about the age, how long they live. How long does the egg to adult stage last? And kind of, it's a cheater answer, but I'll go ahead and say it. It's very species specific. So some of them will live 4 or 5 years, other ones will live a few months. So it's very species specific. The greatest resource that you can use, the Abbott books that talk about dragonflies and damselflies with each record, with each species, I think gives you some lifespan of them too, at least for the family levels.
There are
Another
a
common
couple
question,
of
Michelle.
habits and habitat questions for you. Quick answer. Are females generally larger than males?
A great question. I'm gonna have to go down that rabbit hole tonight. So Mary, Pearl, and Michelle, I'll be tired for tomorrow. Um, you know, when I'm holding them, they seem like they're relatively the same size with a lot of insects because the gravid females tend to be a little bit larger with the eggs, a lot more proteins and nutrients required for egg laying. I would assume that they'd be a little bit bigger. But with dragonflies, when I'm holding the two in hand, I think they're relatively close in size, but I'm not sure. I'll have to dive down that tonight.
Sam, I have one last question. I know you've got another obligation here shortly. And just kind of a wrap up, you gave us the challenge. Will you summarize that challenge? Some of the questions that have come in have been asking if you would share the best times of day to go out and see some of these dragonflies and damselflies, and then suggestions of locations that folks can go. And I think that would wrap it up nicely for us today.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I really do hope that you spend some time, and even if you need to put it in your busy calendar of spending, I'm going to go out for an hour here, and maybe even leaving your phone, or, well, no, take your phone with you, but put it on silent. Put it on silent. Uh, Go out to a little creek, to a pond, to a drainage ditch, and start to look a little bit closer. And sometimes to look and soak up all of nature, you might have to be still for a second. And I know it's mosquito season. I bet a lot of you have already surpassed your bag limit on mosquitoes that you have killed. It's mosquito season. Recognize our dragonflies are eating some of those too. But if you can, go out and sit, be still for a while, and look for dragonflies. The best place to see dragonflies and damselflies, honestly, is relatively close to a body of water, be it a lake, a pond, a creek, even a drainage ditch. So if there is some water out and about, look around there for dragonflies or damselflies. If you can find 10 of them, props. I will throw so many props your way. You couldn't handle all the props and respect that I will give you if you can find 10 different species. Tag me if you put them on iNaturalist for that 10th one if you get to it. So that's a fun challenge to do. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to talk a little bit about dragonflies and damselflies. I am just a dedicated amateur in it, but I truly love these, and I hope that I inspired you to learn a little bit more about them too.
Sam, I think it's a little bit redundant to say that this presentation was amazing.
Oh, hold on. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, check.
Our master naturalists definitely have enjoyed it, and there's lots of kudos in the Q&A. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your passion and incredible images. And that quote from Greg Lastly, there was definitely some onions being cut in the room for me, and for many of our master naturalists who knew him. As a reminder for everybody who's joined us, this presentation was recorded, and so we'll have this recording posted to our website shortly. The recording will also live on Facebook as it has been live streamed there. Sam, there's a lot of questions, and I don't want to bombard you with additional information, but I know that you're commonly a presenter at our Master Naturalist annual meeting in the fall. So maybe we can follow back up with you in the fall with some more of this great information about dragonflies. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you one more time, Sam. And thanks to everybody for joining us during your lunch hour.
Can I hug my screen? Is it okay if I hug my screen? There we go. There we go.
Oh, I can't wait to see you in person
I
this
can't
fall.
wait to. I can't wait to. All right. Thank you guys.
Absolutely. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
So Sam, if you want you want to go down more rabbit holes, there's a lot of questions for you in the Q&A. If you want to use that as some research time,
I'm going to pull it and I will
or
send
maybe
them to
more
you.
information to build another presentation.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, guys. Hope that was all right. I kind of gushed a little bit too much on some of them,
It was
but
great.
okay.
You did amazing.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. All right. All right. I love you guys. All right. I'll see you guys soon.
Yes. See
Bye.
you soon. Bye, Sam.
Bye.
All right. I'm going to stop the live stream now. And I'm going to stop the recording now.